Welcome to the story of the Eisenhower Dollar, a coin that looks ordinary at first glance, but under closer inspection can reveal rare details, surprising history, and collector significance hiding in plain sight. Step 1. A 1971 Eisenhower dollar can look surprisingly ordinary at first glance. A large coin bearing the face of a former president, carrying the unmistakable scale of America's last great circulating dollar experiment. But this particular issue sits at an important crossroads in U.S. monetary history, and the details hidden in its mint mark, composition, strike, finish, and preservation can completely change the way collectors view it. The 1971 issue was among the first Eisenhower dollars ever produced, created during a period when the United States was dealing with major economic changes, the disappearance of silver from everyday coinage, and a renewed desire for a large dollar denomination. What makes the coin especially interesting is that there is no single 1971 Eisenhower dollar in the collector sense. There are different compositions, mint facilities, finishes, and production characteristics to investigate, and some examples are dramatically more desirable than others. As we move through its history, physical specifications, varieties, errors, grading standards, and surviving population, the difference between an ordinary example and a truly important specimen becomes much clearer. Later, we will also examine what authenticated examples have actually brought in the marketplace, and more importantly, why certain coins command substantially more than others. The value story is not simply about the year stamped on the coin. It is about exactly which 1971 Eisenhower dollar you have, how it was made, how well it survived, whether it is genuine, and how strongly collectors compete for that particular example. The story begins with Dwight D. Eisenhower himself, the former Supreme Allied Commander in Europe during World War II and the 34th President of the United States, who died in 1969. His death created a strong national movement to honor him on a major American coin, while the Apollo 11 moon landing that same year provided another powerful reason for a new dollar design. The legislation authorizing the Eisenhower dollar was signed in 1970, and the first coins were struck in 1971. The reverse, created by Chief Engraver Frank Gasparro, incorporated an image associated with the Apollo 11 mission, an eagle descending toward the lunar surface, with the Earth visible in the distance. Gasparro's reverse was adapted from the Apollo 11 mission insignia, while the obverse portrayed Eisenhower facing left. The result was a coin that connected presidential history, military history, and America's space program in a single piece of metal. The timing was significant. The United States had abandoned the gold standard for international convertibility in 1971, and the nation was entering a period of serious inflationary and monetary uncertainty. At the same time, the large silver dollars of earlier generations had become increasingly impractical for everyday commerce. The Eisenhower dollar was therefore intended to carry both historical symbolism and practical monetary importance. Yet the public's relationship with large dollar coins had changed, and the new denomination would struggle to become a routine part of American commerce. That tension between a coin designed to circulate and a public increasingly accustomed to smaller denominations would shape the entire collecting history of the Eisenhower series. For the 1971 issue, the most important distinction is composition. The Philadelphia and Denver Business Strike Eisenhower dollars were produced in copper-nickel clad, while special 1971 S examples were produced with a 40% silver-clad composition for collectors. The standard clad coin weighs approximately 22.68 grams, measures about 38.5 millimeters in diameter, and has a reeded edge. Its copper core can sometimes be seen along the edge between the outer clad layers, giving the coin a characteristic appearance that helps distinguish it from a solid silver piece. The silver-clad collector version is heavier, approximately 24.59 grams, because of its different metal content, although the diameter remains essentially the same. This difference is extremely important when evaluating an alleged 1971 silver Eisenhower dollar, because a simple date and mint mark cannot establish composition. Philadelphia struck approximately 47.8 million 1971 clad dollars, while Denver produced roughly 68.6 million, making the regular business strikes relatively plentiful compared with truly scarce coins in the series. San Francisco produced special collector issues, including silver-clad pieces and proof coins, rather than simply supplying another enormous population of ordinary circulation dollars. The mint mark is found above the date on the obverse, and its presence can immediately narrow the coin's production origin. Philadelphia coins of this era generally carried no mint mark. Denver coins carried a D, and San Francisco collector issues carried an S. For a serious collector, that tiny letter is far more than decoration. It identifies the production facility and can determine which collecting category, composition, finish, and population should be investigated. The physical design also explains why the 1971 Eisenhower dollar feels so different from the smaller coins Americans commonly handled. The obverse shows Eisenhower's portrait facing left, with Liberty above, "In God We Trust" split around the portrait, and the date below. Gasparo's portrait was created to make Eisenhower immediately recognizable, but the large diameter gave the design a substantial visual presence. On the reverse, the eagle appears above the lunar surface, with United States of America surrounding the composition, EPLURIBUS above the eagle, and $1 below. 13 stars complete the symbolic arrangement. Production began with master dies, working hubs and working dies, followed by preparation of planchets and the enormous pressure required to strike a coin of this diameter. Because large planchets are particularly sensitive to handling and storage, contact marks can accumulate quickly, especially on the open fields around the portrait and reverse devices. Strike quality also matters. Collectors examine the hair, facial features, lettering, eagle, lunar surface, and other high points for weakness, while the fields are inspected for abrasions, scratches, spotting, and evidence of careless handling. A coin that left the mint sharply struck, but spent years loose in a drawer, can look very different from one that remained protected in its original packaging. That is one reason two apparently identical 1971 Eisenhower dollars can receive dramatically different grades. The coin's survival story becomes part of its market story, once collector value enters the picture. The first mistake is assuming that every 1971 Eisenhower dollar is automatically rare because it is an early issue. The regular 1971 Philadelphia and Denver clad dollars were struck in substantial quantities, and circulated examples can often be obtained for relatively modest sums. Even attractive uncirculated pieces may fall well below the four-figure range unless they possess exceptional grade, a significant certified variety, an important error, or another compelling attribute. The more valuable territory begins when condition and scarcity intersect. A certified high-grade example with exceptional surfaces can attract serious registry set competition, because large silver dollars and Eisenhower dollars are notoriously difficult to preserve at the finest levels. A premium 1971 D specimen with unusually strong preservation might enter the hundreds of dollars rather than ordinary circulated dollar territory, while a truly exceptional certified piece can approach or exceed roughly $1,100 depending on grade and market conditions. The silver-clad 1971 S collector coins create another layer of interest. Their intrinsic precious metal content provides a baseline, but numismatic value depends heavily on preservation, finish, packaging, certification, and demand. A particularly impressive certified silver-proof or high-grade collector example can move toward the upper hundreds or into four-figure territory when competing buyers are interested. The important lesson is that a price guide is only a starting point. An auction result is the product of one specific coin, one specific grade, one specific certification, and one specific moment of collector demand. A circulated 1971 dollar and a nearly flawless certified example may share the same date, but economically, they can belong to completely different worlds. Grading is where the investigation becomes much more technical. For circulated coins, collectors look for the amount of wear remaining on Eisenhower's hair and cheek, the highest portions of the eagle, and the surrounding lettering and fields. Once a coin reaches mint state, numerical grades from MS-60 upward describe coins that retain their original mint state status, with higher grades reflecting increasingly superior preservation. But not every mint state coin is equal. An MS-63 example can have noticeable marks, while an MS-65 may possess considerably cleaner surfaces and stronger overall eye appeal. At the very top of the scale, tiny imperfections can separate one grade from another, and that difference can become financially significant. Proof coins are graded separately using the proof scale, with designations such as PR or PF followed by a numerical grade, while attributes such as cameo contrast can add another dimension to desirability. Color classifications are less central to copper-nickel clad and silver-clad Eisenhower dollars than they are to copper coins, but tunning still matters. Natural, attractive tunning can appeal to collectors, while dark spots, hazy surfaces, fingerprints, PVC damage, artificial tunning, or aggressive cleaning can reduce desirability. A coin that appears brilliant should not automatically be assumed to be superior, because cleaning can create unnatural brightness while destroying the original surface. Authentication and professional grading become especially important when a coin is represented as an unusually valuable variety or error. Weight, diameter, edge appearance, metal composition, die characteristics, surface texture, and comparison with known genuine examples all help establish authenticity. If an alleged rarity seems too good to be true, professional examination is far safer than relying on photographs or an online price claim. Errors and die varieties provide another path toward rarity, but this is an area where collectors need exceptional caution. A genuine mint error is created during the manufacturing process and should be distinguishable from ordinary damage that happened after the coin entered circulation. Off-center strikes, clipped planchets, broad strikes, die cracks, die breaks, struck-through errors, and other recognized production anomalies can be collectible when they are authentic and sufficiently dramatic. Minor scratches, dents, flattened rims, machine damage, discoloration, and damage caused by tools are not automatically mint errors simply because they look unusual. The same principle applies to die varieties. A genuine variety must be tied to a documented die or recognized diagnostic feature, not simply to an unusual-looking detail. On a 1971 Eisenhower dollar, collectors should be particularly skeptical of claims involving doubled lettering, altered mint marks, fabricated silver composition, or digitally enhanced photographs. Counterfeiters can manipulate surfaces and even alter dates or mint marks, while plated or chemically treated coins can create misleading appearances. A precise scale is useful as an initial screening tool, but weight alone cannot authenticate a coin. Magnet tests, visual inspection, diameter, edge examination, and comparison with certified examples can provide clues, but none should replace professional authentication when substantial money is involved. For an authenticated high-grade, rare error, or exceptionally desirable 1971 Eisenhower dollar, documented auction results can sometimes reach around $2,400 to $3,700, and exceptional pieces may push beyond that depending on the exact attribution and competitive bidding. Those figures should never be interpreted as the value of every 1971 Eisenhower dollar. They apply to specific coins with specific characteristics that were verified and publicly offered. Preservation is therefore not an afterthought, but one of the most important parts of the coin's financial story. The large surface area of the Eisenhower dollar makes it especially vulnerable to fingerprints, scratches, contact marks, improper cleaning, and environmental damage. Hold the coin only by its edges and avoid rubbing the surfaces, even when dirt or haze appears to be present. Never polish an Eisenhower dollar with household products, abrasive cloths, jewelry cleaner, or metal polish, because removing the original surface can permanently lower its numismatic appeal. For raw coins, inert archival quality holders or capsules designed for long-term coin storage are preferable to materials that may release harmful chemicals. Coins should be kept in a stable environment away from excessive humidity, heat, and sudden temperature changes. Original mint packaging can also be important, particularly for collector issues, because packaging can help establish provenance and preserve the intended presentation of the coin. Ultimately, the 1971 Eisenhower dollar is valuable because it combines historical importance with a fascinating range of collecting possibilities. Early series status, multiple mints, clad and silver-clad compositions, proof and uncirculated finishes, condition rarity and the possibility of genuine errors or varieties. An authenticated exceptional specimen might command a result around $3,250 at auction, while another coin with the same date could be worth only a fraction of that amount. The difference is found in the details: composition, mint, grade, strike, surfaces, certification, rarity, provenance, and buyer demand. That is what makes the 1971 Eisenhower dollar worth a careful second look. Not every example is rare, and not every unusual-looking coin is valuable, but the right combination of authenticity, preservation, and documented scarcity can transform an ordinary-looking piece of America's early 1970s monetary history into a genuinely important numismatic collectible. Step 2. A 1974 Eisenhower dollar can look almost too ordinary to deserve a second glance, especially when you see one sitting among other large American coins. But place that coin under a good light, rotate it slowly, examine the fields, check the mint mark, and suddenly the story changes. This was a year when millions of Eisenhower dollars were struck, yet the finest surviving examples became surprisingly difficult for collectors to locate. The mystery is not simply whether the coin is old, because age alone does not make a 1974 Ike rare. The real question is what happened to the coin between the moment it left the mint and the moment it reached a collector's hands. Was it heavily handled? Did it acquire the familiar bag marks that plague large dollar coins? Did it preserve its original luster? Was the strike unusually sharp? Was it produced in Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco? And is the coin being examined actually the standard copper-nickel version, or one of the special silver issues associated with the 1974 date? Those details can move a coin from ordinary pocket change history into serious numismatic territory. As this investigation unfolds, we will examine the production story, the different 1974 issues, the characteristics collectors inspect under magnification, the reasons high-grade examples are conditionally scarce, and the authenticated auction records that reveal what exceptional specimens have actually brought. Most importantly, we will see why two coins carrying exactly the same date can have completely different collector significance. The 1974 issue appeared during a turbulent chapter in American history. The United States was still dealing with the consequences of the oil crisis. Inflation was becoming a major economic concern, and the Watergate scandal was dominating national attention. Against that background, the Eisenhower dollar continued an unusual experiment in American coinage. Authorized after the death of Dwight D. Eisenhower, the denomination honored the former president and World War II military leader, while simultaneously celebrating the Apollo 11 lunar achievement. The obverse portrait was designed by chief engraver Frank Gasparo, while the reverse was adapted from the Apollo 11 mission insignia, created by astronaut Michael Collins and artist James Cooper, showing an eagle descending toward the lunar surface with Earth in the distance. By 1974, The dollar was no longer a brand new national experiment, but it remained an awkward denomination for everyday commerce. Its enormous size made it inconvenient for ordinary transactions, while casinos and other businesses in the western United States provided an important practical outlet for large dollar coins. The mint therefore had to produce enough pieces to satisfy a specialized demand, even though the public had largely embraced smaller coins and paper currency. The 1974 Eisenhower Dollar belongs to the middle of the series, which ran from 1971 through 1978, and its production illustrates a fascinating contradiction. The coin was common enough to be produced in large quantities, but exceptional survivors could be surprisingly scarce. That distinction between original mintage and surviving high-grade population is the foundation of the coin's collector story. Now turn the coin over in your hand and begin with the most basic evidence, its identity. A regular 1974 Philadelphia Eisenhower dollar was struck in copper-nickel-clad metal, with outer layers composed of 75% copper and 25% nickel, bonded to a pure copper center. It weighs approximately 22.7 grams, measures 38.5 millimeters in diameter, and carries a reeded edge. Philadelphia produced 27,366,000 regular business strikes, while Denver produced 45,517,000 copper-nickel dollars. But 1974 becomes much more complicated once San Francisco enters the investigation. The San Francisco Mint produced both copper-nickel-clad collector pieces and 40% silver Eisenhower dollars, including uncirculated and proof versions. The 1974 silver business strike issue had a mintage of 1,900,156 and weighs approximately 24.6 grams, substantially heavier than the standard clad coin. Its silver-clad construction uses outer layers containing silver and copper surrounding a silver-bearing copper center. The 1974 silver proof had a mintage of 1,306,579, while the San Francisco copper-nickel proof mintage was 2,612,568. This means that when someone simply says 1974 Eisenhower dollar, there is not actually one single collecting category being described. A 1974 P-clad dollar, 1974 D-clad dollar, 1974 S-clad proof, 1974 S-silver uncirculated dollar, and 1974 S-silver proof can all carry the same year but represent different products and different levels of collector interest. The mint mark above the date is therefore one of the first things an experienced collector checks. A missing mint mark indicates Philadelphia, a D identifies Denver, and an S points to San Francisco. Before discussing value, composition, or rarity, establish exactly which coin you have. The design itself gives us another way to understand why this enormous dollar became memorable. On the obverse, Eisenhower faces left, surrounded by liberty, the motto "In God We Trust," and the date. Gasparo's portrait had to work across a massive 38.5 millimeter canvas, leaving broad fields that can reveal every significant contact mark. On the reverse, the eagle approaches the lunar surface beneath the distant Earth, surrounded by United States of America and EPLURIBUS UNUM, with $1 below. The composition is packed with symbolism. Eisenhower represents leadership, military history, and the presidency, while the reverse represents one of the most extraordinary technological achievements in American history. Yet those broad, open surfaces create a problem for collectors. Large coins are simply easier to mark. During production, freshly struck dollars were counted, transported, packaged, and stored in bags or other containers where they could collide with one another. The result is a familiar pattern among Eisenhower dollars. A coin can possess full mint state luster and never have circulated, yet still carry enough contact marks to prevent it from reaching a truly elite grade. Strike quality becomes another consideration. Examine the hair around Eisenhower's portrait, the facial details, the lettering, the eagle's feathers, the lunar surface, and the separation between individual design elements. A weak area may reflect production characteristics rather than wear, so collectors learn to distinguish strike weakness from actual circulation friction. That distinction matters because an uncirculated coin with a soft strike can grade differently from a sharply struck coin with the same amount of surface preservation. When you tilt a 1974 Ike under light, you are not simply looking for something shiny. You are searching for the interaction between strike, luster, marks, texture, and originality. This is where the 1974 Philadelphia issue becomes particularly interesting. At first glance, its mintage of more than 27 million makes it sound abundant, and in circulated grades it is. PCGS describes the issue as very common in circulated condition and readily available in lower mint state grades. But the same reference identifies the coin as considerably tougher in MS65 and higher, with the population becoming especially thin in MS66 and above. PCGS estimates roughly 27.3 million surviving examples across all grades, but only about 5.4 million at MS65 or better, illustrating how dramatically preservation changes the rarity picture. The coin's surfaces are the battlefield. Look for hairlines, scratches, bag marks, rim bruises, cloudy areas, and disturbances in the fields. Then look for the opposite: uninterrupted luster, clean open fields, attractive surfaces, and crisp design detail. A 1974 Philadelphia dollar graded MS63 might be a perfectly respectable collector coin without being remotely rare, while an exceptional MS66 or MS67 example belongs to a much smaller population. That is why the marketplace can produce results that seem disproportionate to the coin's original mintage. One documented 1974 Philadelphia MS67 brought $4,025 at a Bowers and Marina auction in 2006, while PCGS records an even more extraordinary $8,900 result for an MS67 example sold in 2023. These numbers are not evidence that every 1974 dollar is worth thousands. They demonstrate the power of condition rarity and the unpredictable nature of competitive bidding for top-quality certified coins. In fact, a PCGS-listed MS64 auction example sold for only $15 in 2019. Same date, same basic denomination, completely different grade, and an entirely different market. The lesson is simple but crucial. With this coin, the number of dollars originally struck is only the beginning of the rarity analysis. The Denver version creates a similar puzzle, but it adds an extraordinary chapter to the investigation. The ordinary 1974D is a copper-nickel-clad dollar, with a mintage of 45,517,000, and most examples were produced for circulation and practical commercial demand. Like Philadelphia examples, they are common in circulated grades and become progressively harder to locate in gem condition. Historical numismatic references describe many 1974D dollars as well struck, although soft strikes are known, and emphasize that bag marks are a major obstacle when searching for MS64 and MS65 coins. But hidden inside the Denver story is one of the most famous Eisenhower dollar errors ever documented: the 1974 D silver-clad Rond Planchet dollar. These rare pieces were struck on 40% silver-clad planchets intended for San Francisco production, apparently after rejected silver-clad blanks were mistakenly shipped to Denver and mixed with the copper-nickel material. Numismatic references estimate only about 30 known examples, making the variety dramatically scarcer than the ordinary 1974D. A collector examining a suspected example should therefore pay close attention to weight and edge characteristics. A standard-clad Eisenhower is around 22.7 grams, while the silver-clad version is around 24.6 grams. The edge of the silver-clad piece also lacks the reddish copper core appearance associated with the normal clad composition. But weight is only an initial clue, not proof. A counterfeit, altered coin, or damaged example can create misleading evidence. Professional authentication is essential when the potential value is substantial. The existence of this rare wrong planchet error also explains why some 1974 Eisenhower dollars have commanded prices vastly beyond ordinary examples. A certified, genuine error is an entirely different numismatic object from a normal 1974 and collectors should never assume that an unusual-looking edge or unusual color automatically means they have discovered the famous silver error. The San Francisco issues require an entirely different approach because they were created specifically for collectors rather than simply being another stream of ordinary circulation dollars. The 1974 copper-nickel proof has a mintage of 2,612,568 and was struck with specially prepared dies and planchets designed to produce sharper details and reflective fields. Collectors evaluate proofs using designations such as PR or PF, followed by a numerical grade, and the strongest examples can display deep cameo contrast between frosted devices and mirrored fields. The 1974 silver proof, with a mintage of 1,306,579, is physically heavier and contains 40% silver, making it a separate category with its own collector market. There are also special die and packaging-related designations within the San Francisco issues, but collectors should be careful not to confuse a recognized variety or attribution with an ordinary packaging difference. The market can become particularly strong at the highest grades. PCGS records a $9,000 auction result for a PR70 Deep Cameo 1974 clad proof in 2020, while the 1974 Silver proof has a documented $2,300 auction result for a gem proof example. PCGS also records a spectacular $13,513 result for a 1974 Silver Business Strike, graded MS68 Plus in 2021. These are extraordinary examples, and they should be treated exactly that way. They do not establish a normal price for every 1974 proof or every 1974 silver dollar. A collector should instead ask what makes the individual coin exceptional: grade, surface quality, contrast, certification, originality, provenance, and competition among buyers. Color is another area requiring discipline. Eisenhower dollars are not assigned the familiar brown, and red classifications used for copper cents. Instead, collectors consider natural toning, brilliance, luster, spotting, and overall eye appeal. Attractive original surfaces can enhance desirability, while fingerprints, haze, PVC residue, artificial toning, or cleaning can substantially reduce it. Authentication and preservation complete the investigation because a valuable-looking coin is only as valuable as the evidence supporting its identity and condition. Start with the simplest observations. Confirm the date, locate the mint mark, measure the diameter, weigh the coin, inspect the reeded edge, and compare the overall appearance with authenticated examples. Then examine the lettering, portrait, eagle, fields, and luster under magnification. Counterfeiters may alter mint marks, manipulate surfaces, plate ordinary coins, or fabricate characteristics designed to resemble recognized errors, while genuine coins can suffer postmint damage that looks dramatic but has little numismatic importance. Never polish or chemically clean a suspicious Eisenhower dollar, because doing so can permanently alter the surfaces and destroy evidence that an expert might need. Store valuable examples in inert, archival quality holders, and keep them away from excessive humidity, heat, unstable temperatures, and PVC-containing materials. For a serious collector, professional certification can provide both authentication and a standardized grade, although even a certified grade does not guarantee a particular future selling price. Current market demand changes, and auction results can vary dramatically from one sale to another. The documented record shows that a normal 1974 Eisenhower can be inexpensive, while exceptional certified examples can reach the low thousands, such as a Philadelphia MS-67, around $4,025, a rare silver-clad Denver error potentially occupying a completely different tier, or a remarkable San Francisco proof and silver strike reaching far beyond ordinary collector expectations. PCGS's current 2026 analysis goes even further, showing that top-grade 1974 and 1974 D-clad pieces can command several $1,000s, while the finest known examples may be valued much higher than the range typical collectors encounter. Those figures belong to specific certified coins and should never be used as a blanket valuation for the date. The enduring importance of the 1974 Eisenhower dollar is that it teaches one of the central lessons of numismatics. Rarity is not always visible from the mintage figure. Sometimes it is hidden in the grade, sometimes in the composition, sometimes in an authentic mint error, and sometimes in the remarkable survival of a coin with surfaces clean enough to satisfy the most demanding collectors. Step 3. There is something deceptively ordinary about a 1977 Eisenhower dollar. It is large, familiar, and made from the same copper-nickel-clad metal that defines so much of America's modern coinage. Yet experienced collectors know that the moment you turn one over, inspect the mint mark, study the surfaces, and begin comparing the quality of the strike, the coin can become much more interesting. The date alone does not make this Eisenhower dollar rare, and most surviving examples are not worth anything close to the dramatic figures sometimes attached to modern coin stories online. The real investigation begins with condition. Why did some 1977 dollars survive with unusually clean surfaces, while others became covered with marks? Why can a coin from Philadelphia behave differently in the marketplace from one struck at Denver? And why can a seemingly ordinary piece become highly desirable when it reaches an elite certified grade? Later in this examination, we will look at documented auction results and discover what authenticated examples have actually achieved. But the important question is not simply how much a coin sold for. The more revealing question is why collectors were willing to compete for that particular piece. With a 1977 Eisenhower dollar, rarity often hides in the quality of preservation rather than in the number stamped on the coin, and that distinction is where the serious numismatic investigation begins. By 1977, the Eisenhower dollar was already approaching the end of its short production life. The coin had been introduced in 1971 as a tribute to Dwight D. Eisenhower, the former president and World War II military leader who had died in 1969, while its reverse also commemorated the achievement of the Apollo 11 moon landing. Chief engraver Frank Gasparo created the obverse portrait of Eisenhower, while the reverse adapted the Apollo 11 mission insignia, showing an eagle descending toward the lunar surface with Earth appearing in the background. The symbolism was unusually ambitious for a modern circulating coin. One side connected the denomination to an American president and military history, while the other connected it to the nation's technological and space achievements. But the economic and commercial environment of 1977 was very different from the optimism surrounding the coin's launch. The United States was dealing with inflation, energy concerns, and continuing economic uncertainty, while the large dollar had never developed the everyday popularity of the smaller denominations or the $1 Federal Reserve note. Eisenhower dollars still found practical use in certain Western regions and gaming environments, but for much of the country they were awkward to carry and inconvenient to spend. By this point, policymakers were already considering a smaller dollar, and the Eisenhower dollar was nearing the final stage of its original run. That makes 1977 historically important. It is the penultimate year of the series before the 1978 finale, and the coin represents the closing chapter of America's attempt to put a large presidential dollar into ordinary circulation. Now look closely at the physical coin, because the specifications immediately tell us what we are dealing with. A standard 1977 Philadelphia or Denver Eisenhower dollar is a copper-nickel-clad coin weighing approximately 22.68 to 22.7 grams and measuring 38.5 millimeters across, with a reeded edge. Its outer layers consist of copper and nickel surrounding a pure copper core, producing the familiar silvery appearance while leaving a copper-colored line visible along portions of the edge. The 1977 Philadelphia issue had a mintage of 12,596,000 pieces, while Denver struck 32,983,006. San Francisco produced 3,251,152 copper-nickel-clad proofs for collectors, meaning there is an important distinction between the regular circulation strikes and the proof issue. A collector should therefore begin with the date, then immediately examine the mint mark. A 1977 dollar without a mint mark is a Philadelphia circulation strike. A D identifies Denver, and an S on the proof identifies San Francisco. That tiny letter can completely change the coin's identity. It is also worth remembering that the 1977 S proof is not a silver Eisenhower dollar. The standard 1977 S proof was copper-nickel clad, and the authenticated reference data for that issue lists the same 38.5 millimeter diameter and approximately 22.7 gram weight. This is one reason photographs alone can be misleading. A coin may appear silver because of its bright surfaces, but appearance is not a reliable method for determining composition. Serious examination combines the date, mint mark, weight, diameter, edge, surface characteristics, and known specifications before any conclusion is reached. The design deserves the same careful attention. On the obverse, Eisenhower faces left, with Liberty positioned above his portrait, In God W.E. Trust flanking the central design, and the date below. Gasparo had to translate a recognizable presidential likeness into a format capable of surviving the demands of mass coin production, and the broad fields surrounding the portrait became particularly important to later collectors because they are magnets for contact marks. Turn the coin over, and the Apollo 11 symbolism becomes unmistakable. The eagle descends toward the lunar surface while Earth appears behind it, surrounded by United States of America and EPLURIBUSUNUM, with $1 below. The reverse was based on the Apollo 11 mission emblem designed by astronaut Michael Collins and artist James Cooper, and the combination of presidential portraiture and space exploration gave the Eisenhower dollar a visual identity unlike almost any other modern U.S. denomination. During production, large metal blanks were prepared and struck between dies under enormous pressure, creating the raised details and mirrored or satiny surfaces appropriate to the particular finish. That manufacturing process also explains a major weakness of the series. These are physically large coins, and large coins tend to collide with one another during production, transportation, counting, and storage. A coin can leave the mint looking excellent and later acquire dozens of tiny marks from contact with other dollars. When examining a 1977 example, look across Eisenhower's cheek and hair, the open fields around the portrait, the reverse fields surrounding the eagle, and the broad areas near the lettering. Strong design detail is desirable, but surface preservation can be even more important when the coin is being evaluated for a top mint state grade. This is where the difference between abundance and rarity becomes visible. Millions of 1977 Eisenhower dollars were produced, so the ordinary circulated coin is not a rarity simply because it is 49 years old. PCGS estimates roughly 12.5 million 1977 Philadelphia dollars survive across all grades, with about 8.0 estimated at MS65 or better, while the much larger Denver mintage has an estimated 7,500 survivors at MS65 or better. Those numbers reveal an important truth. The difficult part is not finding a 1977 Eisenhower dollar. It is finding one that remained exceptionally well preserved. A circulated example may show friction on the highest points, dulling of the original luster, scratches across the fields, and small rim bruises. A mint state coin should show no wear from circulation, but that does not mean it must be flawless. At MS60 through MS63, numerous contact marks can remain. At MS64 and MS65, collectors become much more demanding about the location and severity of those marks, the quality of the luster, and the overall eye appeal. Once the coin approaches MS66 and MS67, tiny differences become financially significant. A 1977 Philadelphia dollar, graded MS67, sold for $3,600 at a Stack's Bowers auction in March 2021, a documented result that demonstrates how condition rarity can transform a common date coin into a serious collectible. That figure belongs to that authenticated, high-grade example, not to every 1977 dollar. Another 1977 coin with the same date but circulation where could be worth dramatically less. This is precisely why experienced collectors never evaluate the date in isolation. They evaluate the date, mint, grade, surfaces, strike, luster, and overall visual quality as one package. The Denver issue provides an even clearer demonstration of how condition rarity can develop. With more than 32.9 million pieces struck, the 1977 D is plentiful in ordinary grades, yet the finest certified examples are considerably harder to locate. PCGS describes the typical 1977 D as generally well struck and brilliant, but frequently affected by bag marks, and the large format of the coin made those marks especially troublesome. The difference can be seen immediately when two coins are placed side by side. One may have a bright appearance but scattered contact marks across Eisenhower's face in the open fields. The other may show attractive original luster, clean fields, strong hair detail, and a remarkably undisturbed portrait. The second coin is what advanced collectors start chasing. Documented auction records show just how sharply the market can react. A PCGS MS67 1977D sold for $3,120 at Stack's Bowers in 2022, while another MS67 example brought $3,525 at Heritage Auctions in 2016. A different NGC MS67 sold for $1,383.60 in 2024, illustrating something equally important. Even coins carrying the same date, mint mark, and numerical grade do not necessarily sell for identical amounts. Tunning, strike quality, certification service, provenance, timing, buyer competition, and eye appeal can all influence the final result. The finest 1977 D examples have become targets for registry collectors because assembling a complete Eisenhower set at elite grades requires patience and selectivity. In this environment, a coin's rarity is measured not merely by how many were originally struck, but by how many survive today in a condition capable of satisfying the most demanding collectors. There is another part of the investigation where caution becomes essential: errors, varieties, and authenticity. The documented 1977 D series includes an extremely rare transitional error struck on a 40% silverclad planchet left over from bicentennial production. Authoritative references describe only a small number of known examples. This is not the kind of discovery that should be claimed from a blurry photograph or a coin that merely looks slightly different. A genuine error must be established through physical characteristics and expert attribution, and the rare 1977 D silverclad pieces are a perfect example of why authentication matters. A collector examining a suspected rarity should first verify the date and mint mark, then inspect the edge, measure the diameter, weigh the coin accurately, and compare its physical characteristics with established specifications. Unusual color by itself proves nothing. A bright silver appearance does not automatically indicate silver, and a darker edge does not automatically indicate an error. Counterfeiters can alter mint marks, manipulate surfaces, plate coins, or modify genuine pieces in ways that create convincing photographs. Likewise, Postmint damage can imitate some genuine errors. Look carefully at lettering for unusual shapes. Inspect the rim for abnormal expansion or missing metal. Study the relationship between the design and the edge, and compare any suspected variety with authenticated reference images. Do not clean a suspicious coin before examination. Cleaning can destroy evidence and reduce collector value. Professional grading and authentication become especially sensible when the potential difference is hundreds or thousands of dollars. The rare 1977D silver-clad transitional errors have historically commanded prices far beyond ordinary Eisenhower dollars, but those extraordinary results belong specifically to authenticated error coins and should never be used to suggest that a normal 1977D dollar is a silver rarity. Finally, consider what happens after the examination, because preservation can determine whether a promising coin remains desirable for decades or gradually loses its appeal. Eisenhower dollars should be handled by their edges, with clean, dry hands, and never rubbed with household metal polish or abrasive materials. Original mint luster is part of the coin's identity, and attempting to make a dull coin shine can permanently damage the surfaces and leave evidence of cleaning. Store raw examples in inert holders designed for numismatic use. Avoid PVC-containing materials, and keep the collection away from excessive humidity, heat, and unstable environmental conditions. For proofs, careful handling is even more important because hairlines and fingerprints can become obvious under magnification. It is also worth clarifying the language of color. Copper-nickel Eisenhower dollars are not normally assigned the brown, red-brown, and red classifications used for copper cents. Collectors instead evaluate natural toning, brightness, originality, and overall surface appearance, with attractive natural coloration sometimes adding character, while spotting or unattractive discoloration can hurt eye appeal. And when we return to the question of value, the documented evidence gives us a useful range of outcomes. A normal 1977 S-proof may be inexpensive compared with elite circulation strikes, while an exceptional certified 1977 or 1977D can move into the thousands. The 1977D examples at $3,120 and $3,525 show what strong condition rarity can accomplish, while the 1977 Philadelphia MS-67 result of $3,600 demonstrates that even the lower mintage Philadelphia issue can attract serious competition. At the extreme end, PCGS records a $7,015 result for a PR-70 DCAM 1977 S-proof in a 2008 Heritage Auctions sale. A result reserved for an extraordinary certified proof and not representative of ordinary 1977 S examples. The larger lesson is more valuable than any single price. The 1977 Eisenhower dollar is a study in conditional rarity. Its history, massive size, presidential symbolism, Apollo 11 reverse, declining production, difficult preservation, and scarce finest-grade survivors explain why collectors continue to examine these coins so carefully. The coin in your hand may be ordinary, or it may possess one of the characteristics that make advanced collectors stop and look twice. The only way to know is to investigate the evidence rather than assume the answer.